Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Danny Show. Today, I have a very special guest. His name is Sid Seixeiro. Sid Seixeiro is a prominent Canadian sports broadcaster and television personality known for his dynamic and engaging style. Born in Toronto, Ontario, Seixeiro rose to prominence as a co-host on the popular sports talk show Tim and Sid, which aired on the Canadian sports network Sportsnet. He has become known for his insightful analysis, quick wit, and unfiltered commentary on a wide range of topics. Seixeiro's ability to connect with his audience and bring energy to his broadcasts has made him a beloved figure in the Canadian media and sports media landscape. In addition to his work on television, Sid Seixeiro is also active on social media platforms where he engages with fans and shares his thoughts on the latest developments in the media. With his charismatic personality and deep passion for sports and news, Seixeiro continues to be a prominent voice in broadcasting, captivating audiences with his unique perspective and infectious enthusiasm. He studied radio broadcasting at Humber College and is currently the co-host of Breakfast Television. And now, Mr. Sid Seixeiro joins me live. How are you doing, Sid?
I'm great, Daniel. That was quite the. I'll send you $20 in the mail for that introduction. It was
No
very
problem.
kind.
Thank
It
you.
was very kind. How are you doing today?
Good, good. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm a huge fan of yours.
All right. Well, you might not be by the time this interview's over. I
Okay,
might be a terrible interview, so I apologize ahead of time.
no
It's
problem.
been, my hours are a little unique, but I appreciate you inviting me on. Thank you very much.
No problem, no problem. So I can first off start this interview by saying what initially drew you to the world of sports broadcasting and television?
I didn't want to do anything else. I didn't. I was addicted to sports, like addicted,
Hmm.
and very early in my life, I knew I wanted to kind of be in media in some way. And that was my initial reasoning was I didn't want to have a real job.
Right.
So that's the road I went down, and I
Hmm.
got lucky because I got some breaks along the way. But
Hmm.
that the initial feeling was I hate work, and so if you do something you love, it doesn't feel like work.
Exactly.
So that's kind of the mentality I had going into it. I got lucky,
Hmm.
but it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot
Yeah,
of fun.
yeah. Like I mentioned before our interview, you were literally the guy I came back from school and watched on the television on Tim and Sid. And honestly, you've had and still continue to have an amazing career in journalism. So, what have been some of the most like memorable moments or experiences you've had in broadcasting?
I mean, there's been that's always a weird question because like you don't you like the way I work and the way a lot of people work is like you move on to the next day.
Right.
So like we never really reflect on those type of moments. Like I'm not good at that. I'm not good at reflecting when things happen.
Hmm.
So it's always a difficult thing for me to do hindsight wise.
Right.
Um, it's a unique job in that like you find yourself in certain situations that are unique, like at a Raptors championship parade, like that's unique.
Right.
We were coast to coast across the country. That's unique. I walked into a room last week and the prime minister was there. That's unique. Um, there's I've been lucky in that we've gotten to do a lot of stuff,
Right.
and whether it's sports wise or whether it's news wise or like just entertainment style stuff with the show, like whether it's you know Bobby Orr, or Michael Bublé, or whoever. Um, it's there's always something unique around the corner.
Hmm.
And I can't again, I'm really bad at this question. I don't like there are memories for me that stick out. Like
For sure. For sure.
we had like the weekend Bianca Andreescu won the US Open.
Hmm.
Uh like she came, we had her like in the studio
Hmm.
and the place was just buzzing. This was at Sportsnet. The
For
place
sure.
was buzzing.
Yeah.
And it's just like those buzz type moments
Right.
I'll always remember for sure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I guess everyone has that in their careers, that buzz moment, like you said.
For
I'll
sure.
never forget. And my next question to you, Sid, is I know you're on breakfast television, so I want to know like how do you prepare for your broadcast before the show, and like how do you stay informed about the latest developments as a news anchor?
You can't stop.
Hmm.
Like
I see.
I don't know how else to answer that. Like you can't stop.
Right.
Like I think where some broadcasters kind of put a limit on what they can do
Hmm.
is they stop absorbing.
Right.
I don't think nowadays you can do that.
Right.
And I have not been that way in my career, like especially with Twitter.
Mhm.
Twitter is there's a lot of things wrong with Twitter, obviously. It's
Right.
the worst.
Right.
But from a staying in touch to what's buzzworthy point of view, it's the best
Mhm.
because it's constantly right in front of you, but you do have to be on. You do have to weed through all the garbage to get to pieces of information. Like someone like in my position, I learned this doing sports radio, like 3 hours of sports radio, which is the toughest job I've ever had.
Right.
Is everything in your life is content, whether
Mhm.
it's something you do read on Twitter, whether it's something that's happened to you, it doesn't matter what it is. Content is everything.
Exactly.
And so if you're not pulling away at stuff all day, you're going to show up and get caught
Hmm.
100%. And not every day. Like breakfast television, for instance, it's a pretty structured show most days. But
Hmm.
today we kind of tap dance a little bit. We had some technical difficulties, and like it was no problem because we were prepared for it, and I was prepared to ad lib about 5 things. So that's kind of my day. Is it doesn't really stop, if that makes
Right.
any sense.
No, I
Like
understand.
like like when you and I are done talking, I'm going into the other room and I'm going to be on Twitter for another hour and a half. Like
Right.
I'm not watching the Champions League. I'm following it. I'll
Right.
catch up on the weekend. Believe me, I'll see everything I need to see.
Right.
But it's about like all the stuff. Like I
Hmm.
I don't think people get it. Like I need to go in there, and a lot of people need to go in there, and I'm not the only one. What's going on in sports? What's going on in news? What's going on in business news? What's going on in entertainment? What's going on in buzzworthy social stuff, however you define that. And I watch my share of reality TV and TV.
Right.
So like I gotta be at some level absorbing that.
I see.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
So
completely understand.
that's my day.
Hmm. I
That's
understand.
my day. And unless the one thing I've learned is very few people put in that kind of work. I'm not I'm not the hardest working guy, but I think I work the smartest,
Okay.
if that makes any sense. Like I do shut it down at one point because you have to,
Hmm.
but I need to be with one eye on this and that and everything else.
Yeah, for
And I
sure.
think there are a broadcaster's worst mistake is, well, I'm not interested in this, so I'm not going to read up on it.
Right.
Too fucking bad.
Hmm. Exactly.
Because I'm gonna tell you right now, I read up on it.
Hmm.
So if anyone out there thinks they're coming after, whether I was at Sportsnet or now BT, like and I said this on air the other day, like I'm pretty sure no one's taking my gig unless I leave it,
I
because
see.
no one's getting ready the way I'm getting ready
Yeah.
with for all of that stuff, and that's how Tim and I did it on sports as well.
Hmm.
Like we couldn't. It wasn't just a hockey show. It wasn't just an NBA show. Blah blah blah. We did everything.
Hmm.
It's hard to do everything.
For sure it is.
It's
For
not
sure it is.
easy to do everything.
Exactly.
So the best tip I would give anyone is if you can have that type of workflow in your head and figure it out throughout the day, I think you're going to be a huge success.
I
And
see.
that's what my day is. The beauty of morning TV is you get 2 days in one. Like my day is done at 10 o'clock.
Hmm.
So whether we have meetings, whether I'm running Christmas errands, whether it doesn't matter what the situation is. And I really learned this the first few times I did morning TV. I filled in years ago on BT, like years ago. It was just like 2 or 3 shows, but the ability to just be done was insane to me. I'm like, this is wild.
Hmm.
Like I fully understand why people who work morning radio or television have a hard time leaving it
Yeah.
because of that freedom.
Exactly.
Like you asked me to be on this pod today, and there was no, I didn't have to move anything around. Like
Hmm.
I'm
Right.
clear.
Right.
Not every day's like that, but, like, you know what I mean.
Hmm.
So um you just have to stay, the thing about me
Mm-hmm.
is I look at a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I miss stuff all the time, but I catch more stuff than I miss.
Mm-hmm. I see.
And Twitter is good for that.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter's the devil in many other ways, but it's good for someone in my position.
I see.
Not Instagram, not any of that other stuff. It's kind of useless. It's Twitter's always been a good outlet for that. And you just got to be on. You can't just show. You can't. My shows. What's the quote? I heard Manny Pacquiao give a quote once, and he said, "I don't like reciting quotes to people. I think it's weird." But the one he said was, "If about boxing, if you make training hard, then the fight is easy.
Hmm. Exactly.
If training's hard, the fight
Yeah,
is easy."
that
I
is true.
try, I try and make the show the easiest part of my day, if
Mm-hmm.
that makes any sense.
No, same for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have that already, if any young broadcaster, anyone at Guelph Humber watching this or anyone else, the key is don't do your research when you're told you have to. Do your research before you walk in the door.
Mhm.
When you have to know the story after the fact, you're done.
Exactly.
You're done.
Exactly.
You're not going to be able to absorb it in a way that makes you look intelligent or capable.
Hmm.
You have to know it before you walk in the door. Whatever it is, whatever your profession, whether you're at City News or whether you're at Sportsnet or where, it doesn't matter. Know your stuff before you walk in there,
Right.
and no one else around you or outside of the office will be able to beat you.
I
Nobody.
understand. I understand.
So
No,
that's how I work.
no,
Somebody
that's
asked me somebody asked me at work the other day. It's like, so what are you going to do today? I'm like, I'm getting ready for tomorrow's show. Like that's I'm not playing video games all day. You know what I mean? Like that's not the job I have. I and I'm proud of that. I'm
No,
proud of that.
yeah,
So
you should be.
that's
You should.
kind of it's boring, but it's what I need. Like it's what I need to do. Like all my life, I've done 3 hour shows or 2 hour shows, or now I'm on air for 3.5 hours.
Right.
It's something you learn when you're on air for that long that you can't cheat it, or it's gonna, like there are days you do the show, but there are other days the show does you.
Hmm. Exactly.
You got to be prepared.
Right.
And I would, any young broadcaster like yourself or anyone else, if you know more than anyone else before you walk in the door, it doesn't matter whether you need it. Because
Yeah.
I've known people
Yeah.
they get really hung up. I've known folks who get really hung up on, oh, I did this research, but I didn't use it. I don't care. You may need it tomorrow. You may need it next week. You may need, like the Raptors parade, we were on air for 7 straight hours without commercials. But I followed that Raptors run to the point where it didn't matter. Like I watched every post game.
Right.
I watched every off day media availability. It doesn't, the stuff you pull from spots that you're not expecting, you can't pinpoint when you're going to need it, but
Mhm.
one day you might.
Exactly. So,
So that's all I try and do every day. It's
no,
be ready
that's
to pull.
cool. Got it.
And if you have that mentality, like I know it's a weird time in media and there's a lot of podcasting going on, and
Hmm.
there's a reshifting that's happening. Nothing is gonna nothing's gonna change the fact that if you're prepared, you're gonna have a huge leg up in this country, because a lot of people don't know what that work ethic is like.
Exactly. No, like
They
I
don't know.
exactly what you mean, the work ethic. Like I said before in some of my other interviews, like my guest speakers who came on, I told them like no one will ever see the behind the scenes of your life, meaning like the training, like you said, you want to make sure the training's as hard as it can be for yourself to set up the show in a way, set up life in a way that makes it more easy. Now, like even if you make the show easy and it doesn't pan out, don't give up. Keep going. That's what I keep telling myself. Like it doesn't matter what it is. And like you said, you're gonna have some information from someone, like you're gonna do all that research. You might not use it all, but down the road, in a day, in a week, in a month, or even in a year, you could use that information. So just being prepared, like you said, is key in this industry,
For
I believe.
sure,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah,
So
like I completely agree with that. Just
mhm,
and again, like you can't get hung up on, oh, I didn't use that information today. I don't
yeah,
care
yeah, exactly.
because it's not about today. It's
Yeah.
about whenever that time hits where it's like you're live on television and it's time to talk about something. Well, what are you going to talk about?
Right. Right.
What are you going to talk about? What are you going to prepare for?
Hmm.
Like it's up to you. It's up to how
Exactly.
much research you do, and you know, good luck to you.
Exactly. So my next question to you, Sid, you touched on this a bit, and how digital media and like streaming platforms is kind of revamping the broadcasting industry. Like, how do you see the evolution of it? Like, how do you see it panning out?
I mean, I think we're still in a place where you have to combine like a broadcast show
Hmm. Hmm.
with digital
Right.
to really give it the push. There's a few podcasts in the country that don't need, like 32 Thoughts doesn't need that. But like there's still in like the industry is still wondering how to sell podcasts in an effective way. I listen to podcasts constantly. So it's been an interesting journey
Hmm.
to
Right.
see sales departments try and figure this out, because like podcasting is one of the rare things where you could pinpoint listenership.
Hmm.
In a way, it's like so much easier than any broadcasting rating I've ever dealt with on television or in radio.
Right.
Radio was the Wild West. Radio was using a system 50 years old. Five people were driving around Toronto with ratings boxes.
Hmm.
And that was like driving advertising dollars. It was crazy. It really was. But I think we're still in a spot where people are having issues monetizing it at the bigger networks.
Hmm.
I
Right.
think I think if you're at a podcasting company, it's going to happen. Like
Mm.
there's going to be a moment where a show goes completely off the grid in this country, and it's just bigger than any. Someone's going to go McAfee in Canada. I don't know who it is, but it's going to happen,
Hmm.
and they're going to get swooped up very quickly.
Right.
So we'll see. But I just think there's that space where it's about the talent, right? Like it's like McAfee's a very unique individual. So the big networks couldn't deny him much longer. The guy was making insane money.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so you want to bring him in the fold. Someone's going to go McAfee,
Hmm.
and then everyone's going to recalibrate podcasting in this country and doing it on your own and however you want to define it.
I
But
understand.
right now, it's been a real struggle
Mm.
making money off podcasts. If you're the bigger places,
Yeah.
people have had success on their own, um, but it's a very unique time. It's a very unique time, and I still think it's going to grow. The digital space is going to grow considerably in this country,
For sure.
considerably.
For sure it is. I completely 100% agree with you. It is gonna grow. So we'll see what happens. But I wanted to know, how was your experience on Tim and Sid like? Like, did you like the sports environment more so than the general news environment that you're currently in, or do you like both equally?
I did well. They were both different.
Right.
Like we had an insane amount of freedom. The one commonality was I had a lot of freedom on both,
Okay.
which was amazing.
Hmm.
Um, Tim and Sid, it just became a point where at Sportsnet, and I can say this now because some people who were there aren't there anymore. There wasn't I was not going to get any other opportunities outside of the show.
Hmm.
It was it was becoming very obvious, and the pandemic kind of sped a few things along, and there was no hiding during the pandemic. Everyone kind of knew where they were. So I just do you do that show for another 20 years, or do you try something different? And I was there were parts of the business that I found very interesting.
Hmm.
and BT had a lot of them.
Right.
And it was a completely different environment, a completely different challenge, and I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So um, I like it. They both have their advantages for sure, and have their advantages. But I think the way I just think I hit, and I can I'm not ruffling any feathers here. I didn't think the room for me to grow at Sportsnet was there, and I was put in a terrific opportunity was put on the table. It just made too much. Like I couldn't say no.
Yeah,
The
for sure.
timing of it was the timing of it was perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have fond memories of Sportsnet. I do.
Yeah.
I just towards the end, I think it was time.
Oh, I see. I see. No, you were fantastic on Tim and Sid. I can
Thank
speak
you.
for myself.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for everything that you done on Tim and Sid, and just in general. You're an amazing journalist, Sid, and I wanna,
Appreciate it.
yeah,
I
thank
don't know
you.
if I'm. God bless you. I don't know if I'm a journalist. I don't know if I'm a journalist. Journalists like because I think it's a valid thing you bring up here. Journalists like they check multiple sources
Great.
and then report something. Like that's as fact, right? Like that's what like Elliot Friedman does. That's what a lot of good people, Rick Westheads, that's what they do.
Hmm.
I'm paid for different stuff.
I see.
My job is way easier than the journalist's life. Like
Right.
I can like to have an opinion. Opinions are like fill in the blank. Everyone has one.
Right.
So like I appreciate what you're saying, but like I do think there's a
Oh, there's a
difference.
difference. Yeah, I
I
understand that.
do think there's a difference, and those journalists in this country who work the phones as much as they do, that's not a life I could live. Because you
Mm,
make one mistake,
mhm. I know.
you're in big trouble.
I know.
Look at John Paul Morosi there during the Otani thing. I love John Paul. He made a mistake.
You
He
did.
didn't even make a mistake. Someone gave him some bad intel.
Hmm.
Someone he trusted.
Yeah. A
So
lot
what
of big
happens?
name.
He's the one who has to eat it. It's a tough business, man. I couldn't.
Yeah,
That's a
it's
part of
tough.
the business I could not live in. Your
Right.
reputation's on the line every single time you report or even hint at a story,
Yeah, I know.
and it's like
It's
that's
tough.
not. I don't have the chops for that. That's tough. That's a tough business.
Yeah,
Tough.
it's a tough business. A lot of big name journalists do make mistakes that they don't want to put themselves in. It just happens because we're all human at the end of the day.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
yeah. So talking about that, actually, I wanted to know what challenges have you faced in your own career and how have you managed to overcome them?
I mean, like I have to say the biggest challenge ever was the pandemic, but like
Right.
that goes for everyone else.
Right.
um like there was a handful of us who had to produce content with no sports going on,
Hmm. Hmm.
and you couldn't get too into the news, but you kind of had to because there was nothing else going on. So it was, and there was no guidance on it. So I just like I did not enjoy the end of the Sportsnet run. I
Right.
will be blunt with you on
Mhm.
that for
Sure.
many reasons.
Hmm.
um I wish it could have ended differently. It was just kind of like I left, right? There was no like no party with the guys. There was nothing. Like I just kind of moved.
Hmm.
Um, but that was hands down the most challenging part of my career. It was challenging for all of us for the obvious reasons. But when you're trying to navigate that too, like I changed my entire career during the pandemic. There was a lot going on. Like it
Right.
wasn't that was not an easy time. It
No,
was an
it wasn't.
exciting time in a lot
Right.
of aspects for me, but it wasn't easy.
Right.
And that is you know, if that's the worst thing that happened to my career, having to navigate that, then I'm a lucky guy
Hmm.
because everyone had it tough.
I see.
um so but yeah, I the pandemic and then trying to figure out what was next.
Hmm.
But in a way, like that part of my career, strictly career wise, like it gave, and I wasn't the only one. Like you go to a lot of professionals in any walk of life, there was a lot of clarity in that moment too, where it's like, look, I don't, life's short. You never know, right? Like, I don't want to do this. Let's do this. I don't want to get stuck doing this for my life. Let's do this. There was a lot of that. across professional boundaries.
Right.
And I was one of them. I was one of them where I was like, I'm I don't know, I think I need something different. I,
See.
and I do not regret the move. I don't, the timing of it was still weird. There was a lot of that I didn't like. It was quick, but it was either, make a move or don't. And
Right.
that's, I am proud of the fact that I have the balls to do something like that. I don't think there's not a lot of people that I've run into that would. Um, and I don't regret a thing. I think it's opened up a lot of different doors for me. And I thoroughly enjoyed doing breakfast television. And breakfast television has had its challenges too. It's some major changes recently on breakfast television. But things are looking good.
Yeah,
And so yeah, the pandemic was a test. Pandemic was a test. Yes,
I see.
that was the one.
That was the one. I understand. So I'm gonna segue a little bit. So outside of broadcasting, do you have any hobbies or interests that you're particularly like passionate about?
Not really.
Oh, really?
This is kind of what you see is what you get. I like to golf. I'm terrible at it. I like to golf. I like to patio in the
Wow.
summer. Give me a warm afternoon. Like I'm I'm not crazy. There's also so many hours in the day with me.
Right.
So like it's focus on the show or don't focus on the show. I'd prefer to focus on the show.
Mm,
But yeah, I'm way more boring than people think.
I see. I see.
Way more.
I see. Honestly, Sid, I'll never forget the moment on Tim and Sid where I think it was Tim who shot the basketball behind his
It's a great
shoulder.
shot.
Yeah.
It's a great shot.
I'll never
To this
forget
day,
that.
it's a great shot.
I saw that
Yes.
live. That was insane. Yeah.
That was a big moment.
That was a
That
big
was a
moment.
big moment.
Yeah, for sure it was. For sure it was. So we're almost gonna wrap things up, Sid, but I'm just gonna see any other my questions before I let you go. You
You know what? Let me
answered
let me let me test let me test you with something here.
sure.
Close your screen. Close all the questions on your screen. Just
Okay,
get rid of them.
sure.
What do you want to ask me to close it?
To
Because
close,
interviews, you're going to learn going forward.
sure.
Write down your first question. Don't
Uh-huh.
write down any others
Okay, sure. Sounds
because
great.
it's a con because it's a and you slipped into that as we went. This is not an interview per se, especially when you have this kind of time.
Hmm.
This is a conversation.
Right.
Look at it that way.
Okay.
And so, because somebody told me that years ago, and they were right. And now, and when you like, I was lucky because I got to do a lot of interviews on sports radio. So when you're doing like that, just that eventually becomes muscle memory to you.
I see.
But just one question off the front,
Hmm.
maybe
Hmm.
to get you in, and
Right.
then throw away the paper.
Okay.
Unless there's a specific quote or something that you want to draw from your interview subject.
Okay.
If there's
Okay.
something like that there,
Okay.
don't get me wrong, a little
Probably.
research is good. But in terms of the questions,
Right.
no, it's a
No, I
conversation.
already know like the questions off the bat. I just don't want to like, mess up. That's why I have them
You're
on.
doing great, man.
Oh, thank
You're
you.
doing great.
Okay.
You're doing great. Because I
All right.
noticed in the middle of it, you were slipping with like we were having the conversation, and then you checked back into your questions a little bit. You were
Hmm.
doing great.
Oh,
So
okay.
you don't need to check back in. Like
Okay.
whatever's in the dome, because like
Thank
that
you.
stuff that stuff is no, it's like this is stuff that young broadcasters need to know. When you're in the interview, it's different from whatever you imagined it being going in.
Sure.
If you know what I mean.
No, I completely
So,
100% agree.
and I think that's the kind of thing people consume well,
Hmm.
is a conversation, not
Okay.
just what you think the conversation is going to be. Live in what it is,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
you'll never go wrong in an interview.
Sure.
Now
Okay.
that also comes with experience. I'm not, I
We're
realize
doing that then.
you're an aspiring young broadcaster.
Thank you.
But all right, so screens closed.
The screen's
Screens
closed.
closed.
Closed. It's gone.
How do you want to close the interview?
Uh,
Ask me anything.
so you actually I want to do it's kind of twofolded.
Okay.
The first part is you already touched on this already and you answered it already, but you can speak on a little bit on it if you want. Um, but actually, you know what? It's fine because it's like what makes like the what's it called? How do you make like a great broadcaster from the rest? Like how do you kind of single yourself out from the herd? How do you become better with your skills? But you already answered that already, I believe, in our
Correct. You're right.
yeah,
I did.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you already answered that. So my last question to you is you already brought the advice too. You already answered that one, but I'm going to say it anyway. What type of advice do you have for young aspiring broadcasters like myself who want to get into this industry?
Just do it a lot.
Just do it all.
Do it as much as you can.
Okay.
Like there's nothing I think in terms of live TV and radio, if I'm being completely honest about it, other than Bob McCowan,
Hmm.
I think you're looking at the guy that's done the most in this country.
Hmm. Yeah.
I went from a 3-hour show to a 2-hour show, national TV,
Yep.
to a 4-hour show
Right.
where I do 3.5 hours and part of 3.5 hours, both in Toronto and then national television a day. Experience wise, like you don't have to like me or what I say, and I get that, and I'm fine with that. As long as you watch, I don't care if you like me. But um, the more you do it, there is no more value in the business than that. There's none.
Hmm.
As long as you're checking yourself on the way too, like what worked, what didn't.
Okay.
How do I have to structure my day to be as prepared as I can? What do I have to lose? Where am I wasting time? Where can I cut a corner?
Hmm.
Because you got to cut it. Like we're human beings, you got to cut a corner.
Right.
Where you got to just learn your routine and do it as much as you can.
Right. Right.
Talk to people as much as you can. Be in that environment
I see.
because there's no greater experience than that.
I understand.
I'm serious. I think other than Bob McCowan, who I grew up listening to,
Hmm.
find me someone who's been on air more than me in the last 15 years.
I can't
I
think
don't
of.
know if I don't know if you can.
Oh
I don't
no.
know if you, like I don't know if you can. Other than I mean, don't maybe like a Dina Pugliese who's done a ton of television in her career. Like somebody like that, like a morning show constant, because that's the longest form of TV there is.
Yeah. Yeah. The morning
Um,
shows for sure.
so you know, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if live sports counts, then there are names. Chris Cuthbergs and Dan Schulmans. They've done their thing. But like in terms of non-live sports, like you're talking about, I think I'm right up there,
Hmm.
and I wouldn't trade it for anything because I have like the experience I've seen or I've gotten down through the years is invaluable. There's
Right.
nothing you can throw at me. I've seen some fucked up stuff. There's nothing you can throw at me that I have not seen. Nothing. Now, watch something really messed up happen tomorrow at work, but because I will jinx myself. But it's experience, man.
I see.
All experience. Like
I see.
it's where the more you get it, the better you'll be.
I
The
understand.
better you'll be. And if
What?
you're not necessarily getting better, like don't don't be discouraged by it. But you do have to check yourself in that. Like I don't have like no one has to tell me if I have a good or a bad show. I know. As you learn, you'll know. And anyone watching this will know.
Right.
So that's one of the biggest things I can. And the beauty of podcasting in the digital space and what the realities are now. Like I didn't have a pod when I started. A podcast came in kind of 35% into my career, 40%. And then it took off.
Hmm.
But these are huge advantages young broadcasters have to make a name.
Right.
Huge.
Yeah, for sure.
So take advantage of it.
Thank you. Thank you for your advice to anyone out there listening. Uh, thank you for watching this episode. It was a special one. Thank you, Sid, for coming on. You can follow his social handles, Sid Seixeiro, on his Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I'll put the links in the description down for below for all of you to go and subscribe. Sid Seixeiro, everyone. Sid, thank you so much for doing
Thanks,
this.
Daniel.
That
Appreciate it, man. That was fun. Thanks for
was
the
a lot of
invite.
fun. Thank you.